We ready? Well, go ahead and call this meeting to order. Be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into a closed meeting for the purpose of discussing the following: discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplinary, or resignation of specific officers, appointees, or employees of any public bodies. 1, Economic Development Authority. 2, the Planning Commission. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins? Aye. Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs? Aye. Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
And I know there's some folks here. I just want to let everyone know that April DeMott's is ill, and she will not be with us this evening. She has the flu. And I know there's some folks with the media. I just wanted to let them know why she wasn't here. Is there a motion to come out of closed meeting?
Motion. Second.
Not your coat over.
What happened? Did he do that?
Okay.
You did that.
Did I do that? Oh, how wonderful. I'm just starting just
There was
like
a motion, and I believe,
I think she
was there a second?
banging his second.
Okay. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Certification of closed meeting. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.23711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia certifies to the best of each member's knowledge only public business matters lawfully exempted from an open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion conveying the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board. And this certification is our board's word to you that we're only discussing things that we're supposed to be in closed session. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Next is our moment of silence. I'd ask that we all stand, and then I'd ask the county administrator to lead us in the pledge.
Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Before I go on any further into presentations, I do want to note that Ms. DeMott's is not here this evening with us, and she has the flu. And I appreciate her absence and not spreading it to the rest of us. And I hope that you'll keep her in her prayers, and I'm sure she'll be back with us next year. So next on our agenda is a comprehensive annual financial report for fiscal year end June 30th, 2017. Mr. Aldridge.
Good evening. Thank you all for having me again this year. What I'm going to do, in front of you, you should have a copy of the financial report. It's also on your, I believe, your iPad as well, but we'll actually make it easier to follow me. We'll just use the paper copy, if you don't mind, for now. As you know, each year you have to have this audit done, and included in the audit is not only the county, it's also the school board, the PSA, and the Economic Development Authority. So all those entities are part of this audit that we have each year. One thing that changed this year I just want to tell you about is right now we're having this meeting in December, okay? It has to be notarized and then sent off to the state that the audit was presented before year end, and that's a new thing this year, that notarizing that this presentation took place. So I just want to make you aware of that. All right, and as always, if I skip something you want to talk about, just yell stop. Ms. Perkins, if you want to talk about the cash basis, we'll hit that too.
Well, it could be accrual.
We'll pick which one.
Okay.
All right, let's flip a few pages over to page number 1. Page number 1 starts at the top, Independent Auditor's Report. And you see Brown Edwards logo there. What I want to point you out to look at the very bottom in the opinions section, where it says opinions. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. Once again, the county received an unmodified or a clean opinion on your financial statements. So you all received a clean opinion. That's the highest level of assurance we'll put on a report. Okay? Beginning on page 3A, you'll have what's known as the management's discussion and analysis. These 12 pages provide a pretty good summary of what happened this past year at the county. The goal is a reader could just kind of stop there and get a real sense of the financial happenings at the county. And again, your staff writes this. This isn't something we pull together. Your staff writes it with good analysis. All right. Now if we go over to page number 5, Exhibit 1. It's always like reminding you all of this. Exhibit 1, we've got the statement of net position. And you can see there are 4 columns there. One for the governmental activities, and that's the county, the Public Service Authority, the School Board, and the Economic Development Authority. This is what they call the accrual basis of accounting. This is just like any other business, meaning you buy that piece of equipment, you put it on the books and depreciate it, you issue debt, it shows up as debt. So just point out a few numbers to you on here. You'll notice in the first column there, capital assets, depreciable. It's $268 million. Okay, that's where you're going to find your buildings, your vehicles, other types of equipment. That's a historical cost basis. It's not fair value. Okay, it's where land would be on the line above, non-depreciable. Okay, but again, that's historical cost. The other thing to point out to you all, if you look down in the liabilities section, 2 reminders there. One, you will see that due within a year and due in more than 1 year, those 2 are almost $200 million. Okay, that's debt. Those are your bonds and things of that sort, such as other post-employment benefits. But a number also in that section I just want to point out to you is your pension liability. And you can see there the pension for the county was $15 million. The pension for the school board is $92 million. Okay, that's a number that came up, I think it's been about 4 or 5 years now, that in the past it was just disclosed, but now it actually goes on the books for the readers to see what that liability is. Okay, now let's flip over 2 pages to page number 7. And here we're just going to look at the county itself, not the PSA, EDA, or schools. This is more in line with how you manage things here at the county. And you can see the general fund is the first column, that's the operating fund. You ended the year with $43.9 million of cash, and you can see the other assets as well. Your receivables, you've got money due from other governments, you've got an advance to a component unit. Below that you have your liabilities, you can see those. And then what's left over is critical. It's your fund balance, okay? Your fund balance isn't just cash. It's kind of the net of cash and payables and everything else. That's what's left over. There are 5 categories you see. The first one being non-spendable, okay? Those are things you can't spend. Most of those would be inventory, prepaid assets, things like that, non-spendable. Then you've got restricted, okay? Restricted fund balance would be if you issued debt and it had to be spent for a particular project, okay, or a grant had to be for a certain thing. Then you start getting into categories such as committed. Committed is you as a board. That's what you all set aside and say, this is what we want to use this particular money for, okay? Commitments can only be removed if you as a board vote to take them away, okay? Then you move down to a little less restrictive and to assigned. Well, assigned is where you take fund balance and say, we're going to use it for this project. It doesn't really have to go before the board. Management can make that decision, and you can change those plans as well. Then you're left with unassigned, okay? Those are the funds that don't have any strings to them, meaning they're not for a particular project. The thing we like to look at each year is compare that unassigned fund balance to your expenditures, okay? And what you want to see there is a trend as far as how many months we have in our fund balance. And if we did that exercise, and what you would do is just take all your expenditures, divide them by 12 to get an average monthly expenditure. Divide that number, or divide the unassigned number by that, and what you will find is you have 2.24 months in fund balance at the end of the year, okay? Last year, that number was 2.3. The year before that, the number was 2.3. So you've been consistent. The Government Finance Officers Association, they're kind of the think tank for government accountants. Their minimum they would recommend is 2. So you're above the minimum, what they would tell you need to have. But again, your number's been 2.3, 2.3, and this year 2.24. So again, you see consistency there. All right. Point out a few other things in this document. On page 11, you will see your budget on page 11. And the way it works, you've got your original budget, and then if you all made any amendments during the year, that would show up in that final column. And then you compare actual results to your final budget. And you can see the top section, your revenues were $124 million, what you had budgeted. They came in just a hair under $123 million. So there was about $1.2 million shortfall from what we budgeted revenue and what we really received. Also, if you take that same exercise and go down to expenditures, you all had budgeted $128 million in expenditures. Actual was only $113 million there. So you were under your expenditures by $14.6 million on the budget. Okay? Just want to point that out to you. And again, you can see in your categories, there were no lines that were overspended on budget. The little section there, debt service, you net those two together, the principal and the interest, and you still were over by $50,000, or as far as under your budget, I'm sorry. All right, page 12, we start the notes to financial statements. I'm not going to read all those to you, but I will point out one. If you look on page number 23, and this is something I remind you every year, but it's always good to hear, I think. On page number 23, as you know, the way it works in Virginia, schools cannot issue debt, okay? It's not allowed. So what you do there, you can see an example on page 23. If you went to the back of this report, you would see the school expenditures are of $110 million. But what's missing from those expenditures is the debt service on the debt, meaning if we issue debt to build a new high school, well, those expenditures are showing up on the county's books, okay, to the tune of $18 million. So even though their expenditures in the back say they're 110, if you added the debt service to it, it's really $128 million in school expenditures. Okay. Page 33. And again, if I skip one, please yell stop, or you want to talk about one. But on the bottom of page 23, I want to point this out to you all. Oftentimes, you will hear of financial folks come in and say, y'all might want to refund your debt. You've got a good opportunity for savings. This past year, November of 16, y'all issued $64.6 million in refunding bonds. And when you say refunding bonds, meaning what that means is we replace this debt with new debt. So the total debt usually doesn't change. It's just new debt for old debt. And the reason you do that is you get better interest rates on the new debt. And what you will see, the last paragraph, by doing that, you reduced your total debt service payments over the next 15 years by $6 million. So that's real cash there. Over the next 15 years, you're going to save $6 million by doing that. All right, just a few more things to point out to you. If you looked all the way over to page 83, page 83, you will be able to see the school board financial statements there. And you can see they have two columns. One's operating and the other's cafeteria. They are treated as their own funds. Again, you can see the operations on the next page, on page 84. You can see what their expenditures were. Okay. Something else I want to point out to you all is if you look over on page 93. Page 93 gives you a 10-year history of expenditures and revenue here at the county. Just want to point out a few things to you all if you look at this. If you look at that expenditure section on the far right, back in 2008, our total expenditures were $91.4 million. This past year, the total expenditures were $119.58 million. So we've increased there. Part of that increase is if you work your way up the page, look at the line education. 2008, our education expenditures were $34 million. This past year, there were $46.8 million. So you can see a $12 million increase over that 10-year period for education. The reason I tell you this is if you kept working your way up the page, there's that section there in revenues, intergovernmental, okay? Intergovernmental represents state and federal funding. Back in 2008, the state gave y'all $19.5 million, the state and feds. This past year was 18.46. So you can see that that pool of money is not getting any bigger, but all these other expenditures are getting higher. So that's something, it's critical for you to see that, always be aware of it, that what we're seeing there from the federal and the state are putting a little more pressure here at the local level to be able to pay for these services. All right, the last thing I've got for you is on page 111 in the back. This is just a nice summary of the audit itself. We also have to look at federal money that comes through here, and that kind of rotates from year to year what programs we have to look at. This past year, we looked at the school lunch, school breakfast, and special ed. I'm pleased to tell you, in looking at those programs, there were no findings at all. So no issues there of non-compliance that have to be reported to the federal government. So again, those rotate every year, what we have to look at. But again, this past year, there were those programs and we did not find anything. Again, just a reminder, your staff prepares this report. That's something to be commended that Angie, Ms. Hill and her staff do a great job at this. We just have to put an opinion on it. This will be submitted for the GFOA award. We fully expect that you all to receive it once again. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Supervisor Shepherd?
I don't have any questions, but you've done a good job. I understood everything you said.
Well, thank you.
Supervisor Biggs?
I don't have any questions, just a comment. It's more than just a little pressure from the state and feds, it's a lot.
Supervisor King?
I don't have no question, but I do want to thank Angie and her staff. Done a wonderful job. You make us look good.
Supervisor Perkins?
Well, again, I don't have a comment except to say thank you, Angie, and thank you to your staff. But also, I think it's good that the people who will remain on the school board, on the Board of Supervisors, have it in my mind, they can use some of this from our own point of view to say, look, you are putting more pressure on the locality. And I want to know specifically why is that happening and what we can do about it. Because as a county, our biggest amount of money comes from real estate taxes. And we have very little that we can, do outside of that. And so I think it's very important for the state to look at what it's doing with education as well as all the other areas and what we're doing, and we've got to come to some kind of resolution. I know we can't do anything without the state. I mean, except through the people we elect to public office, and I think that gives us a very significant way to go when that time comes, to do that.
Supervisor Creed? Thank you very much. And I understood it as well. And I was told there would be no math in law school, so I'm gratefully appreciative of the clarity in the report.
Thank you all.
Thanks, John.
All right. Next on our agenda is public address. And we have one person signed up. This is the board's opportunity to listen to citizens who have something that they'd like for us to listen to. It is not necessarily our time to respond. The only person we've got signed up is Miss Miller, Susan Miller.
Good evening, Chairman Tuck and the Board of Supervisors. My name is Susan Miller, and I live at 3065 Mud Pike Road in Montgomery County. I'm coming here tonight to speak to you as a citizen, but also as the chair of the Montgomery County Parks and Recreation Commission and as a Reiner resident. At our most recent Parks and Recreation Commission meeting last Thursday, I shared the commission the information that my husband, Bob Miller, who's on the Planning Commission, shared with me when he came home from the Planning Commission meeting of the previous night. On Thursday, when the commission met, I addressed my concern that in the plan for the new fire station in Reiner, which is greatly needed and which I support wholeheartedly, there seemed to be no ingress or egress for the Montgomery County Reiner Park that is to be part of that property on that site. On the plan, I really couldn't imagine how enough space would be available to have a separate ingress or egress for the park. And I thought immediately about the problems EMTs have in exiting the Auburn Elementary High School driveway. It would create another impossible situation. There are many issues that need to be considered about that regarding purpose, support, and how all of this is going to be worked out. At the end of the Parks and Recreation meeting, I reported that I would ask questions the following Monday night at the Board of Supervisors meeting. In the interim, on Friday, I met with Emily Gibson, the Montgomery County Planning Director, and asked my questions. We had an excellent discussion about the process and how my concerns could be addressed. Emily shared information with me regarding the property and the design for the area. All of my questions were answered, and I will report back to Parks and Recreation Commission sometime before our next meeting as to how all of this is going to work out. My thanks to Emily and her ability to interpret planning information to a layperson, and to April DeMont, who is on the Board of Supervisors and attended the Planning Commission meeting, but unfortunately, due to illness, was not able to come to our meeting on Thursday night. I also want to say that Trey Waltz, who is on the Planning Commission and our liaison, was there, and he also entertained the same questions. And of course, always my thank you to Mitchell Hawk, who is the ultimate. This is how government should work. A place for questions, discussion, and resolution for and to all concerns. Thank you for your dedication to the needs of the citizens of Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other individuals signed up. Is there anyone else who would wish to address the Board of Supervisors?
My name is Bill Turner. I live at 1690 Elliott Road, Christiansburg, Virginia, and I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Creed and Ms. Perkins for the service that they have rendered to the county. Since I have been coming to these meetings, I at one time thought I might want to be in your chair, but I'm glad other people stepped up because you have a very difficult position, and I know that there are people throughout the county who will agree with me that they're not always happy with your decision, or they're not always unhappy with your decision, and I think that's just the way we have to face life. But I do have to say, just like I feel like we have the greatest law enforcement cooperation between Virginia Tech, Blacksburg, Christiansburg, and our Montgomery County Sheriff's Office at the head of Sheriff Pardon. You guys have really had a hard time over the last few years. And I think y'all have stepped up, even though y'all have disagreed many times on many things. You have also agreed many times on many things, and I think we're a better county for it. But I would just like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for your service, for what you do for this county and the towns as well. It all comes out in the wash eventually. But thank you very much for what y'all do and how y'all do it. And if I can support any of y'all at any time, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Is there anyone else that would like to come forward? Seeing no one else, I'm going to go ahead and close public address. I do believe we do have an addendum.
We do. We have one item this evening. I had emailed the board earlier today and also sent you an attachment, a resolution of support, a memorandum of agreement between the Innovation Enterprise Investment Authority, which is part of Virginia Tech, and the County of Montgomery to endorse a project that they are seeking.
Is there any discussion regarding the addendum? Or is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Now is there any discussion? Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on adding the addendum to the consent agenda?
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Thank you.
Next up is consent agenda. Is there a motion in regards to consent agenda?
Motion.
Second. Third.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Is there a motion to go into work session?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
We're in work session, and first up, or only up in regards to that, is the new Reiner Fire Department, or proposed Reiner Fire Department.
And Chair Tuck, as Ms. Gibson gets ready for a presentation, I wanted to point out that you may have noticed that the screen on this side of the room is not working. We've had an equipment failure on our projector, and we're working to, things break. We're working on getting that replaced. So hopefully by the next meeting, you'll have one on this side, but tonight, everybody has to look that way, sorry.
That's one I use anyway.
In preparation, because it was also down for Planning Commission, there is a map at your seat that sort of tells the story I'm going to tell just in one page versus the couple of pages I'm going to take. Today we are looking at a comprehensive plan compatibility review, so this is not like a rezoning, which is a legislative act, and it's not even like a site plan, which we handle administratively. I'm just going to walk you through the staff analysis that you were provided in your packet. We do this for state code reasons, is also county code consistency. And again, it's not anything really to act on that we normally would hold our public hearings for. This is just something to look at consistency with the comp plan and get the Planning Commission's recommendation. This vicinity map shows the location of both the future Reiner Fire Station as well as the proposed park space. And it's right along Route 8 on the right before you enter the core of Reiner, downtown Reiner. This is the map that you have at your seat, and it's been revised based on, as Ms. Miller pointed out, we had provided a map similar to this, but we look at maps all the time, and we didn't realize there was a few gaps missing. So this is clearly labeled, showing the portion that's for the fire station, the remaining portion that can be used for future park area, and it also shows that other road frontage along Route 8 because we will be able to have separate and distinct entrances for both projects. This is a very draft concept that we're working on. Something similar to this will be shown on the site plan. It shows the building location as well as an entrance, and then the parking areas. And you can see this concept shows this different hatch here is the heavy-duty concrete that's used. This area over here is for the volunteers to come in, so this is an asphalt, and that's basically the only difference you see there. This, while not the best close-up of the building, we worked with what we had, kind of shows that you have the 6 drive-through bays here, and then this is the other space that they need. You can see things like laundry, turnout gear, a day room. This is a meeting space for them to be able to do training. And this is a rough elevation. This lets you see what the facade of the building will look like, how the bays and the front will lay out, and also the rear there. Provided also in your packet is another map. This is a compilation where staff took the county's future land use map as well as the Reiner Village future land use map, put them together. You can see the dark edge here. This shows the border of what we consider to be the Reiner Village proper. And it's important to note, as we did in the staff report, that the village plan was adopted back in 2004, and Reiner has seen a lot of growth since that time. It's part of the reason that we're looking at having additional park space and fire and rescue spaces. So the background that we covered was related to the code sections, that this has to go before the Planning Commission, and then as needed on these issues, and this has been done in some cases in the past, the board can ask that the Planning Commission actually hold a public hearing on this. In this particular case, since the board's very familiar with this project, that wasn't the direction. The proposed facility is a fire station with 6 truck bays, and then the future park area is really undetermined right now. As we know, we'll study that more in the future, find out what type of entrance it needs, find out what type of parking it needs based on the uses that are incorporated into it. We talk about comp plan consistency in the staff report. The property is actually designated in resource stewardship, and that's not actually in the Reiner Village, it's adjacent to it, if you'll remember the back, a couple of slides where we showed the outline. But it's important to note also that the Reiner Village will actually probably be modified in 2018 when we start that update, because just like Price's Fork, Reiner has also experienced a lot of growth pressure since the last plan was adopted. Resource stewardship itself doesn't speak to desiring public facilities other than parks being located there. And so, but there were lots of other portions of the comprehensive plan that spoke specifically to consistency with this project. So based on staff's review, we took this to the Planning Commission and we recommended approval, as did the commission. But you'll notice when I did your staff report and provided you with the vote, while the entire commission is very supportive of the project and sees it as a community need, it was a 5-2 vote with 1 member absent, and that was specifically because the commission, because their purview is land use, felt like perhaps a comp plan amendment could have been done prior to doing the review, and that would have strengthened the compatibility to make it an even stronger case. And that's all I have for you, unless you have any questions for me.
Well, since it's in Todd's district, I'll see. Do you have any questions?
No.
Supervisor Creed? No. Supervisor Perkins?
No. Everybody that has a part in this has been made aware of everything that's going on here. In other words, the Fire and Rescue Commission.
Yes, ma'am.
And what about, we didn't have to hold a public hearing, but are we making all of this available to the people in the community?
There was a planning commission meeting, and that would have been open and advertised, and in our meeting tonight.
Yes.
So those would have been
Several opportunities.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure, because I know that the people out there really feel the necessity to have explanation of things that are going on, but also to see for themselves what will ultimately result in that place. So thank you for doing that.
Supervisor Biggs?
Yes, we're just voting to accept it, right, later on?
Right.
Okay.
That'll,
Yeah.
not now, though, because we're
Yeah.
still in work session.
Right. So that's, okay.
Supervisor Shepherd?
I don't have any questions.
Emily, thank you, and I appreciate Supervisor DeMoss filling in for me Wednesday night. And sorry that she couldn't be here, and sorry she, but she is, my understanding, is devastated with the flu. So, thank you very much. Well, was there a question?
Yes, when the time comes that you've completed those plans and what have you, then you'll come back to the board and share that information?
Actually, it'll probably come through administration back to the board when we're ready to bid the project, so you can see
Just
what's going out. Yes, ma'am.
Will there be any opportunity for the board to say anything about those plans ahead of time?
I know that there's a committee for the volunteer fire department that's reviewing those plans to make, and staff is also involved. I'm sure there'll be an opportunity for observation, and if there's concerns, we can certainly address them at that time. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, I figured so, but I just wanted to know.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to be here, but I'd like to see it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Is there a motion to come out of work session?
Motion. Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Next up is old business, and I guess at this point in time, I'll report back from the Fire and Rescue Commission. They did meet Thursday night. It was a very good discussion, and in many ways, there are 4 departments right now that aren't on the same frequencies and to get those. One is Reiner, the other is Blacksburg Fire Department, the other is Shawsville's Rescue Squad, and then the last is Elliston. By Reiner moving this forward, should be commended of moving this forward to get everybody's attention and kind of encourage those other departments to move forward. At this point in time, Elliston does not have the frequencies, and they're going to start going about that process. Shawsville does have the frequencies, but has not put out the radios and hasn't got the bids. The Blacksburg Fire Department has been setting aside funds. They've received funds from 2 different sources, us and the town of Blacksburg. And they've been setting aside some funds, but they may need some money to reinforce a tower to be able to put the microwave dishes on those. The Radio Commission is meeting, and the entire commission has said that they would like to have until March the 14th to be able to report back to the commission about those recommendations. And part of it is to make sure that all the radios work and that they're interworking, and we don't have to have a situation where something's non-compatible. And so it was a unanimous decision amongst that board to ask for that. Like I said, it was, I wish all of you could have been there, how they worked through the problem and the problems that they have, and also work together. And so that's where we're at this point in time, is they're asking for that brief delay. There was discussion about whether it should be 6 months, but that time period was reduced down to 3 months to be able to move forward sooner. Also, Neil was able to speak with Procom to make sure that the price would remain the same, so there's not that concern. But there's also a hope, and again, this is a hope, that by buying a lot of radios or making a purchase at once, that they may be able to reduce some of their costs and be an overall savings to the county. And so that's what the commission voted again unanimously, including Reiner. But again, by doing so, I think it's pushing the other departments to get them to where they need to be. And by moving this forward, hopefully, they may not all be, and maybe we will be purchasing the radios at that point in time in March, and maybe Elliston may not be ready. But we'll know that they're all going to be integrated and that they're all going to work together, and that we're not going to have to come back and say, Elliston bought a different radio system, and it's not compatible with the others. Yes, ma'am.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you have any idea how much all of this is going to cost us?
Well, as I mentioned the last meeting, it was $500,000 to $600,000 as an estimate. That is still an estimate. And I can give you some rough numbers, but please don't take these to the bank. Elliston and was thinking that their fire department, they may have a tower that they need to work on. So that might increase their cost, but right now they're talking about a little bit less than Reiner's. But if you add that tower in, that could jack up their costs. So they were about $98,000. Charlottesville Rescue thinks they're going to be similar in that price. Blacksburg, it depends. If they are able to reinforce the current tower, they're talking about like $30,000. But if you have to build an additional tower for this, there might be some additional costs. And so those departments are going to be all meeting and have a fixed price and know what money we need, and they're going to come to us then for appropriations at that point in time, and they're going to also make sure that they're fully integrated and the systems work. And there's some really good discussions and about whether pagers are necessary, because now text messaging happens. And that radio committee is going to be meeting, and that includes folks from the 911 authority, to make sure that those radios work with our 911 and are integrated. And so, again, it was a very positive meeting. And if folks came away and shaking hands and trying to move this thing forward and seeing the need, as Supervisor King expressed earlier.
All right, well, because excuse me.
Yes, ma'am. No,
I remember last meeting we did talk about the fact that you all in Reiner had already set aside money. You had worked on it a lot.
We didn't spend money.
Yeah, you spent money on it. Okay, and so your radios would work with the ones for the rest of
the radios that our assistant chief checked on. We had several people out looking what they have now.
Right.
What we want and what we need is compatible with the system that's up now.
Okay.
They're not the top of the line radios. They're mid-grade, but what'll happen if in the future, if I ever move up, these radios will be compatible to move up another level.
Okay, all right. That's what I was just wondering if it would, if that's what you were talking about last week too, the last meeting about all of these things. Thank you very much.
And like I said, it's that work that Reiner has done that has, I think, encouraged. I'll say Blacksburg Fire was well on their way, more so, but it's really also pushed some of the other departments to see that, one, the money is available, because all of us committed to make sure that money was going to be there, but they're wanting to make sure that everybody is fully integrated and everybody can go up if possible.
As the police department has already, the sheriff's department has already.
Law enforcement is integrated, as I understand it, and that 911 authority has done a good job, and also, as one of our citizens commented, our law enforcement works very well together. And our rescue squads work very well together, but we need to get them the equipment that they need so they can work better. And but again, that commission asked that we not do anything for funding until after that March 14th date.
So will that cost be a part of the new budget?
There will be some funds that may be available from our reserve funds to allocate for that, but if they come back with a larger proposal in March, that'll be something that we talk about as part of the upcoming budget process. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But I made it clear that this board wanted to move forward,
right.
And that's why you started, you hear, and a lot of, remember, these folks are volunteers who are agreeing to come to a lot of these meetings.
Sure.
They're meeting on the 14th of January to really get the process going, and they have to work with everybody's schedules who are volunteering, but they committed to being ready on that 14th, and so then we can allocate the funds, and then the different departments, because they are different departments, can start going ahead and getting those radios and moving forward. And Reiner has spent $9,000 or $10,000 at this point in time, and I don't know how much the other departments have allocated, but we need to move forward to get this. But we also, it'd be good for us to make sure that the system we buy will be fully integrated. Did you have a question, Daryl?
So so wait until March, is that gonna put a kink in what we heard last week or last meeting?
Well, the thing is, we've been working, well, I haven't. Chief and assistant chief's been working on it for 2 years, a little over 2 years. What I'm going to ask this board to do, I talked to the chief the other evening, and he said he agreed to wait till March. What I'm going to ask is, I respect the chief, he runs the firehouse. I think the Fire and Rescue Board has a meeting on the 15th. If they're not ready to go, I would like to see this board have their money the 16th. I mean, these guys went to the Fire and Rescue Board, explained everything as they went. As they went. It started a little over 2 years ago at Fire and Rescue Board. Brought up about the radio system. Chief Saul says Reiner needs to move up. Nobody else said a word. And this didn't only come from Reiner, it come from other people. Nobody said a word. So we started spending money to get our license and get this moving. And Chief Saul and Assistant Chief kept everybody informed where we was at the Fire and Rescue. They was told, keep moving forward, keep moving forward. Now we're at the goalpost, we had to stop.
So,
And I'm not saying nothing bad about nobody. I want everybody to come on board because I know how frustrating it is. Out here on a call trying to talk to rescue and you can't. I mean, you're sitting there helping people and they say, where's rescue at? Oh no, we can't talk to them. And I don't blame this board for this. We should have stepped, not the board, me as a volunteer fireman and rescue should have stepped up before and let y'all be aware of what's going on.
that's what
I mean, you're not out there, so you don't know.
Right.
But I just feel that these guys worked on it, and I don't think they should have to wait no longer than the 16th of March.
So you're asking this board to be sure that they have the funds available to move every
Move forward.
department?
I like to move them all.
You mean every department move forward using your plans?
No,
Or-
not ours. See, what's good for Reiner may not be good for Elliston or Shawsville.
But you want them all to be compatible with the ones that you
So we
have already
all
looked at.
can communicate. Yeah.
Right, okay. All right.
See, I mean, like out there at Reiner Fire, we can even talk to Reiner Rescue.
Yeah, well, that's why I was asking, would it be part of this year's activity or be on the new budget cycle? If the money's available, then on the 16th, what does that mean? That means that we have to use what we have and still have to wait to pay for the rest?
Well, hopefully, and Craig had mentioned this during the
Yeah.
Fire and Rescue Commission, we're going to be getting, and he's going to be getting input from those folks that are meeting and saying, okay, here's what that dollar figure is. Blacksburg is very active, and one of the things they're going to ask our board to do is either say, can we reinforce that so we can add our microwave towers? I don't think that's going to be very controversial, but they're going to need some funds for that. But they're going to be able to, because again, remember, they've got dual funding source. They're going to be using some of the funds that they've been saving for the radios and then also some funds that they're getting from the town. Christiansburg is utilizing funds that they get from the town to upgrade theirs currently. But what our goal, like I said, is, and there may be different requests, just like I said, Blacksburg is talking about a tower. There's a chance that Elliston may need a tower, but that we can all work together to get that done. But again, we explained, and it was clear in that board meeting that they were going to have a recommendation of a dollar figure for us to be able to vote on after the March 14th.
Meeting.
After that's their deadline that they imposed, and like I said, Reiner's chief voted for it, everybody, every single chief from both fire and rescue, including Virginia Tech, voted in favor of waiting till the 14th.
Okay. Well,
So I guess at this point in time,
Well, I wanted
Yes,
to ask.
sure.
Okay, Todd, I heard you say that the March 14th date was good, but at that time, you wanted to get that money, right?
Yeah.
To get it going. Okay, I heard Chris say that it's not going to affect the cost of it. That was one of the things we were worried about last time,
Right.
that if we didn't get on board, it would affect the cost. So it's not going to affect the cost. Is that correct?
Well,
Well,
what's going to happen now that we didn't move forward is the technician's going to have to go back and do the same thing twice because they done hooked some of them up.
well, and all I can say is from Neil is that they got the same price, and that the fellow agreed that with this, the price would be the same through and
The fiscal year.
into the fiscal year. So they basically extended and said, this is your price. And that's what I specifically asked Neil during the Fire and Rescue Commission.
That's for equipment.
That was for equipment, and as I understood it, there was not, the costs were going to remain the same. And that I specifically asked that question because I knew that was a question this board had.
Well, then
Yeah.
what's Todd talking about, like, the technicians have to go back? Is that a cost to them going back?
The way,
Because I don't know.
right, and the way they were saying it is not as, the microwave, I guess, is a different type of technology, and it isn't as complicated as some of the others. You have to do a frequency check, and again, I'm not
Yeah.
as technology savvy on these issues as perhaps I should be, but that was the impression that we would be able, the price would remain the same, that would be frozen for that period of time. But there is a hope that by buying more radios, if let's say that Elliston's not ready, but again, Shawsville's got their frequencies, and if they're ready to go, and let's say the tower's reinforced for Blacksburg, then that may be 3 departments that are all buying the radios together. And when you make one of those bigger bulk purchases, you can drive down the cost some. And so that was a hope. Now, that was not a commitment that they were definitely going to get it, but that was one of the goals of the Fire and Rescue, the radio group this meeting.
Okay, so basically, okay. So Todd, you're okay with the March 14th date?
Yeah, the chief is, yeah. He runs firehouse.
But I guess what I'm trying to find out is, how to make the best decision here, because I'm really passionate about the fact that, when you can't communicate, it costs people's lives.
right. Well,
I mean, and we're in charge of our citizens' public safety, and as far as I'm concerned, this is something that should have been sort of getting done. And I guess I was under the impression, and I think it was because I knew the law enforcement was getting done, and I guess in my mind I was thinking everything was getting done, and I didn't realize it wasn't. And so I really think that it needs to be done. And so what I guess I'm asking, Todd, you're out there and you're doing this job. If we wait until March 14th for them to meet and all, what you're saying is at our next board meeting, you want us to be ready to roll it out for Reiner?
If
For
they're all
any of them that are
If
ready?
they're ready, yeah.
Okay.
but
I just don't want one, if one station's not ready,
Right.
I don't want to put off the rest of them.
Okay. I can agree with that because
Right.
it sounds like to me that Reiner was the catalyst for this, and so they've gone ahead on their own, and then they're sort of getting a
Well,
little pushback.
they didn't do it on their own.
Yeah, but they got a little
The Fire
pushback.
and Rescue Board
Yeah,
was
they
aware of
did.
what they was doing.
Okay.
all right.
And that's why I said, once they kept moving, and all of a sudden they got to the goalpost and
Yeah.
they threw the
okay.
flag on.
Okay.
Sounds like there was some miscommunication.
All right, but if you go ahead, then every other fire department will have to use the same radios
No.
and frequency that you
No.
use so they can talk to each other.
No, we can't use same frequency, but they don't have to use same radios. We picked this radio because some of the other fire stations already have them.
but they can be put on so they can talk to each
Right.
other.
Yeah.
All right, what is necessary, if you go out and you get this, then what's necessary for the other departments to have in order to be able to talk to your department?
I don't know how far they are.
That's what the Fire and Rescue Commission is going to
I know,
provide.
yeah.
And so that's what part of their goal is, to make sure that all the other departments match up. And so that's one of the things that they do, and that's what their goal is.
Well, there's only one thing you have to do with any of these things that we've talked about here tonight, and that is get some money. It all ends up back to getting the money. If you got the money, you can go forward. If you don't have the money, you can't. That's just the ins and outs of the whole thing.
And right now, what they're going to do is get us, see how much money we need, and we believe that we have those monies in reserves. It's a matter of making sure that what we buy and what we vote for them to buy works.
You got the money put as into the reserve for 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, or how many have you got?
From talking with the staff, we have believed to have between $500,000 and $600,000 in reserves to be able to address those. Now that is what we're projecting. You know, you've heard me talk about there's a chance of some towers. Well, there may be a decision that we make in March where we can do this right now for Roanoke, but that it's going to take 6 months for it to get a tower, and so that's going to be the first step to getting Elliston's done. And then let's say that it's reinforcement, so we may allocate those funds right then to get Elliston their step, to take care of Reiner, and to do those things.
Something I should have known, but I don't. Concerning the money aspect of this thing and it being ready and no place to put it. You know, if their tower doesn't work the way it should work on one or the other or whatever, how have they put that down for saying, hey, this is what we had to do and this is what, is there anything there for any of the others or for just that one?
Well,
And why, you talk, Elliston is strictly a fire department?
yes, I'm talking about separately Elliston Fire and Shawsville Rescue. Shawsville Rescue has their frequencies. Based on the meeting, Elliston said they did not have their frequencies, and that can take a while. So, but they've also got some issues. One of their repeaters is on top of a telephone or a power pole. So that may have to be something that's addressed. We've got to take a look at that. But clearly from what this board said, we wanted to move things forward and try to address it. And the Fire Commission took that seriously, and they're willing to meet and work very hard over the next 3 months to get it done and have something to present to us.
I think it's very confusing for some reason. Not that your explanation is wrong or anything, it's just kind of how you're trying to get all of the fire departments and all the volunteers to agree to the things that Reiner is proposing.
So I guess, is there a motion from hearing from Mr. King, is there a motion to table this to March, the first meeting after March the 14th?
When is?
I was trying to look at the calendar.
I think in March we meet about every Monday because it's
So that would be
budget
the
time.
19th?
Let me look.
Is that, am I thinking?
In March, our meetings will be, actually, we'll be presenting the budget on the 5th. We'll have a board meeting on the 12th. We'll probably have a budget work session on the 19th, and we'll have a board meeting on the 26th. So
Since we're going to have a budget work session, could we put this on the 19th, which would be 3 days after or 4 days after?
Todd, didn't you say you wanted to make a motion to have this happen in January?
No, in March.
In March?
I want something in writing that says, come March, the money's out. Because what's going to happen is somebody's not going to be ready, and you're going to keep putting people off.
That's not, at least that's not my intent. My intent is to move us forward as fast as we can, but I don't know what other folks are. And the 19th would be 4 days after that, or 5 days after that meeting.
Well, my intent would be to move it because that's what I've been saying the whole time after I found out about it. We need to do this. This is like critically important. So I just, I don't know how, I think we need to organize and figure out how we're going to do it and be ready.
Okay, so
And I do think that's what the radio subcommittee of the Fire and Rescue Commission wants to see happen too. They want to make sure everything's integrated before anybody moves forward.
Which means you all can't do it until everybody else is ready.
That's what gets me.
Okay.
They kept working on it, and everybody kept saying move forward, and then it stopped. That was wrong.
Because you said that you can't, that means you can't do anything till the rest of them are ready. Is that what you're saying?
That's what they're saying.
Oh, that's, no, but I mean without the
We
money.
can move forward.
How did this ever happen?
But I want everybody to hook up together. I really do. I just don't want something to happen on the 14th or 15th and say, well, let's wait another 3 months because then they'll be ready. That's where I'm at.
Does Hank have something to say?
No,
Okay.
I don't believe that the sheriff was wanting to intervene on this. I may be
I
wrong.
would love to, Mr. Chair, now.
He looked like he had something to say. That's
Just to help clarify, to help you.
That's fine. Come on up.
And Supervisor Diggs makes a great point that we should be working on this. We've been working on this since I started 31 years ago. Montgomery County is incredibly hard to cover, is it not, Todd?
Yes.
The mountains and the valleys make it treacherous for radio. And what I believe the Fire and Rescue Commission has in mind is a microwave system that we can build a platform for the future. And that later on, the 911 Center has envisioned a much larger scale operation that will cost much more money. But we will have the platform already started. That platform involves all the towers and the sites that we currently have around the county. As Chair Tuck said, we have a couple towers that are in need of repair and probably won't support that microwave like it needs to because it has to have line of sight. But if it has line of sight, it carries much more data than we're able to carry now. And it's not just fire and rescue. We will all, that's the beauty of this system. We can all move to it. And it's like a plug and play type deal. But like Supervisor King says, I don't want to get into the technical end of it. I'm not that good with the technical end of it, but I know the system. And once we get there, it will be a thing of beauty compared to what we have now. So whatever we need to do to make that happen. And I know Roanoke has been leading the way, and carrying 2 radios is ridiculous. And Roanoke not being able to run a fire, can't talk to Roanoke Rescue, we can't have that. Just like Elliston not being able to talk to Shawsville, we can't have that either. So that's what they're all trying to work on. I was just trying to help you along, Chair Tuck.
well, that helps.
Okay, thank you.
So is there a motion to table this?
We need to take it off the table first.
Yeah, it's on the
Okay,
table now.
Okay.
Put
So,
it- And then you guys can decide what to do with the motion.
okay, so is there a motion to remove it from the table?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion to remove it from the table?
No.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Now, is there a motion to set this over on the March 19th date?
For action?
For action.
Do it, Todd.
Is there a
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
All right. New business, proposed Roanoke Fire Department. A resolution accepting and concurring with the finding of the Planning Commission that the proposed Roanoke Fire Station and future recreation facilities are substantially in accordance with the Montgomery County 2025 Comprehensive Plan. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject B, Montgomery County Public School request for funding for the Christiansburg High School campus renovations. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject C, League of Women Faxed Residence Brochure. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject D, one-time pay supplement transfer from special contingencies. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? I just want to make sure we're clarifying on this. We had money set aside for the pay increases, and based on the comprehensive study, that study will not be ready probably for a couple of months.
At least February or March.
Or February or March. So we set aside the money to give employees raises, but we're not ready to do that at this
That's correct.
point in time. And so I did watch Christmas Vacation, and I saw that Clark Griswold was very upset that he didn't get his Christmas bonus, but I want to make it clear that this is a one-time bonus and that we won't be giving this potentially next year.
That is correct.
Rather that we would just be supplementing this year.
That's in recognition of the discussion we had with the employees about hopefully having the comp and class study back to be able to implement January 1. It's not going to be ready January 1. The funds to fund this one-time pay supplement are coming from the monies that the board had set aside as part of the budget for that. And it is a one-time, once the comp and class study adjustments are in place, that's it.
Does that prompt any other discussion or questions?
It doesn't go into their salary retirement.
No, ma'am.
This is a bonus.
It's a bonus.
One-time pay supplement. Yes, ma'am.
So we've motion and a second. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Revisions to the county's procurement policies and procedures, specifically in regards to vehicle replacement. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, what was it?
I was just going to say, I think it's good that it has in here that, if there is a request from a county department about a surplus vehicle being used, they can go to Craig. I think that's really a good thing to have in there.
And this was brought up at the Fire and Rescue Commission that let's say that Roanoke ends up with an extra vehicle and Christiansburg's got theirs are broken down. They could use that, but that vehicle wouldn't be replaced. It would be just utilized for a period of time until they got theirs up and
Yeah.
running. Right now, I think Elliston's got a tanker that's down there using an old non-replacement vehicle. So there was a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Resolution in support of full state funding for Virginia State Park.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Resolution of appreciation of Delegate Joseph Yost.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Will we present it, will he come to, so we can present it to him?
I told him it was on the agenda, and I think he will come sometime in January.
We can have it
present.
framed and everything. Okay, good.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
6 ayes.
County Attorney's Report.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Gary and Annette. I really appreciated working with you guys the last 20 years, and I thank you for all your service.
Thank you, Marty.
That's all.
County Administrator's Report.
Just couple items this evening. First, I want to thank the board for the support of the one-time pay supplement. I know on behalf of the employees, they very much appreciate all that this board does in recognition of their efforts, and I appreciate that very much. Secondly, I also want to thank Gary and Annette. Gary's been a tremendous support and a lot of help to me over the 8+ years I've been here. Annette was the board chair when I applied for this job back in 2009, and I think she was the first board member I spoke with. And you'll always have a special place in my heart for all the help you gave me.
So will you.
Thank you. And last, just happy holidays to everyone. Hope you have a safe and Merry Christmas and New Year.
Next up is Supervisor Shepherd.
No report, but I would just like to say a couple words. I appreciate the time I've got to spend with you two, Annette and Gary on the board. I've learned a lot from you, although you weren't trying to teach. It was just from watching you, and I do appreciate it.
And I'm going to skip over Supervisor Creed and Supervisor Perkins, and I'm going to let them two go last. And then, so I'm going to skip over to Supervisor Biggs.
Okay, just a few things. It's with great sadness I will miss Steve and Sarah being sworn in tomorrow. I've never missed one of those, but I have been asked to come to Richmond to serve on the Governor-elect's Transition Policy Council on Local Government. Now, I don't know if I'll stay on it or not, but I thought it'd be important to have Montgomery County, represented. And then I wanted to talk about the Animal Care and Adoption Center. We had the Happy Paw Days, and Carol and I were able to go at different times, and they had a bake sale, and you could get your pet a picture with Santa, or you could go and have a professional portrait made, and it was to raise money. They had a bake sale and adopt a free friend, and our director told me that she thinks we've had over 1,000 people sign up to volunteer. Some of them are one-time volunteers and some of them are more than once. So everything was going well there. I brought up a road issue earlier to David Clark because he wasn't here, and it's really more in Darrell and Chris's sort of district. What it is when you go down Price's Fork Road towards 114 or Pepper's Ferry, there's a stoplight there, but what's happening is people are cutting through the gas station, even though there's a sign that says not to do it, and they're turning right or they're turning left onto Pepper's Ferry, which is not real safe to do. And so the person that brought this to my attention asked if we could look into that, and so I asked David Clark, and he said that he would look into it. And then other than that, I just can't believe this is your last meeting, Gary and Annette, and you know how I feel about both of you. I guess I'm the longest serving member with both of you. And so Gary, all of that stuff you taught us about land and negotiations, really good. I learned a lot from you, how to do the deal. And Annette, so much with the education and the regional cooperation. Thank you so much. And I just want to say happy holidays, and like Craig said, please have a safe holiday. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Supervisor King.
I don't have much. I would like to say it's been a pleasure serving with both of you. I mean, the county's a lot better shape that you served on this board, and I do appreciate it. It's one thing it is about this job, you find out. You can't make everybody happy. But both of you made me happy serving with both of you. I respect both of you, I really do. And on a different note, that little snowstorm we had the other day, I think we had right at 400 assisted calls.
Oh my gosh.
I know the first responders, they get thanked for what they do, but I really want you to think about dispatch. We answered some of them, they answered them all. They answered every one of them. And I do appreciate each and every one of them. Y'all have a Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Well, Along the lines of Supervisor Biggs, I know that the Sheriff's Department has put cars in, it used to be Stu's, now it's Christie's parking lot to try to cut them down on people cutting through. They even had, at one point in time, Christie's installed speed bumps. And as somebody who watches it happen on a morning basis, you have individuals who are cutting through that. And I think that one of the things that we talked about is widening 114, and that's one of the areas, and maybe creating a turn lane there, because that's what they're using that parking lot for, is a turn lane. But what concerns me is somebody's going to be walking to go inside the store, and you've got people cut through at 15, 20 miles an hour, and who are in a hurry. And so perhaps if we could have the sheriff post somebody there a few times. I know the school zones, your vehicles have a huge impact on having people slow down. And
yes, they do.
Perhaps having them there, write a few tickets, would slow some of those folks down too.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Next is to move over towards serving with folks who have given so much to their communities. And then you start looking around and you read the resolutions to see what the two of you working with other board members have been able to accomplish. And it's pretty amazing. And then you look at our auditing and you realize that we're getting $1 million less from the state than we were really 10 years ago. And being able to do everything that we've been able to do. And I've learned from both of you. Both of you bring something different to the table and brought something different to the table. And I hope that you'll enjoy some of the free time. I noticed that Bill Brown seemed to be smiling a lot out there. Chuck Shorter was smiling a lot out there when they were there earlier. And so was Jim Politis. And he's got, as he says, he's got a 23-year-old heart now. He's looking to enjoy himself even more.
Right.
But I hope you'll take some time for yourselves, do some things, spend some time with those great grandbabies and the like. And again, your service to our community has been tremendous. And so, Gary, I'm going to let you go, and then Annette, you'll have the final word since you've got a little more seniority.
A lot more.
I don't intend to make a big talk about doing this, that, or the other, but I will say thank you for all the help that you've given me and try to push me forward to make myself feel better about myself. The best thing I can tell you right now is, for me, as y'all saw out there, there's 3 little chaps, only 2 of them was out there tonight, and the other one's not, 6 months old. So I got 2 grandchildren with 4 coming. Got one that's not got here yet. So with 4 on the way, the 4th one on the way, and I absolutely revel in anybody's got enough time to go and play with those kids.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, Gary, I thank you for all you've done to help me, too. We've learned a lot from each other. I will say that you have really, really represented your area of the county, and you've stuck to that, and yet you have helped supported the rest of us in some of the things that we wanted to do for a particular area, which brings me to the whole idea that the Board of Supervisors, once you get here, I represent District A, but I also represent Montgomery County. And I see it as a group, and we can discuss, we can probably get a little irritated with each other, but at the end of it, we're still friends. We can still talk to each other, and we can still try to understand why each section and why each of us is in favor or not in favor of a particular issue. But I do want to say I thank you, all of the people who did come tonight to express their thoughts to us, and that was quite helpful. And I do want to reiterate that there are a lot of people that help Emily, Angie, just go down the list of people. There's Clay, at McCoy, there's the people in his office and human relations. They really have a lot to do. There's the sheriff's department that we look to for help. I did speak to David Clark too. I said, David, I'm sorry to hit you with this one when you're just here being nice, but you know, that's the way it goes. And I wanted him to know that there was some issues that were still out there. But I think part of what Gary said is so important. He has the grandchildren, and everything we do on this board is for our citizens and also for the future. What we're leaving, what we want Montgomery County to continue to do, to press forward and to be and to represent what the citizens, or what we can interpret as the citizens' desires, and be open to that. We need to be, you know, and I think we are. I think we have to be open to all of the discussions that go on, and then we have to make a decision and move on. Once we've made the decision, that's the decision, and we move on from there. And there's no room for holding on to, you know, disagreements or anything else. We move forward and we try to accomplish what we can, keeping in mind that all the citizens should hopefully benefit in the long run, and particularly our young people as they grow up. I spent my life teaching young people, and as far as I'm concerned, they are important now as young people, but they're also important as future citizens that are working, paying taxes, and a lot of them work and pay taxes now, for all of the contributions that they make to where we are. So again, thank you. If I haven't said thank you to anybody, please note that I really mean it, and I mean it to all of you. I don't think there's a better place to work and to play and to enjoy. And once again, I am so grateful that the park is there at the Meadows, because I can't tell you how many people have come to me and said it's just a wonderful thing, and it's wonderful that you all were willing to give that to the town of Blacksburg and that we were able to receive it. And there's so many people I meet in the grocery store and say, I sure do like the park, we can walk. So that makes me fun. But it's true for everything that we really do. There will be people who will come and tell us that they appreciate it, or that they understand why we did it, but they still appreciate our efforts at what we're doing. So I thank you so much. I can't say enough about you all, because you are very special. Very special in my heart. I hold a place for you. I'm sorry I won't be with you, but as I said, I think the good Lord knew a lot more than I did at the time that it happened. So I wish Steve and Sarah the very best, and I also hope that everything goes forward as we have talked about, or as we get to new issues. You all do a great job, I know. So I'll be listening. So thank you again so much. And thank you, Marty, for your comments and your kind words.
Thank you. Everyone, have a happy holidays, and this meeting and this board is adjourned until next year.